Hi, young scientists. Welcome back. I really miss you all so dearly. Now, today I want to talk to you about something that you have to learn in fourth grade, which I think is one of the hardest things that we learn in fourth grade. It's about the moon phases. So today you should be able to answer these two questions. What causes the different phases of the moon? And what are the 8 phases of the moon? All right, so let's talk about it at first. A little review. You know that the sun does not move. You know that the earth moves around the sun, and we call that revolution or revolve around the sun. That takes one whole year, 365 days, 1 year. While the earth is revolving around the sun, the earth is also rotating on its axis. That takes 24 hours or 1 day. That's why we have day and night. While that's also happening, the earth is moving around the sun, revolving around the sun, and rotating on its axis. At the same time, the moon is moving around the earth. And we see the moon a little bit differently. Have you ever looked up in the sky and seen a full moon where it's big and bright? Or sometimes you can only see a little bit sliver of that? That is the moon phases, and that's exactly what we're learning about. All right, so I have this paper here to show you the different phases of the moon. So you know the moon does not give off its own light. It only reflects the light from the sun. So because of it's reflecting the light and we can only see part of it, that's why we have the different phases of the moon. So these pictures of the moon are showing what we see from Earth. So when we start here and we see no moon at all, or it's completely dark, that's called a new moon. That's because the sun is only shining on the half of it that we can't see. Then as the moon is moving around the earth, we see a little bit of light on the right, where it's just a little sliver of light. When we see a sliver of light, that shape is called a crescent. Now this moon phase is called waxing crescent. Waxing, you can remember, it means gets bigger. The amount of light that we see gets bigger. We have a cute little rhyme to help us remember this. It says, when the light is on the right, the moon is getting bright. When the light is on the right, the moon is getting bright. So it starts at new moon where we don't see any light. Then we see a little light. That's called a waxing crescent when we just see less than half of the moon. And then as it keeps going, this phase is called first quarter. We can see a little bit more light, so the light is getting bigger. And it's called the first quarter because you might look at this and say, hey, we can see half of the moon lit up. But really we know the moon is a sphere. So really we're only seeing half of half. So that would be a quarter. So then look, the amount of light is getting bigger. We see a little bit, then a little bit more, and then a little bit more so that look, almost the whole moon is lit up. It's not quite a full moon yet, but it's almost. When it's almost a full moon, this moon phase is called waxing gibbous. It's waxing because we know the amount of light is getting bigger. The amount of light on the right is getting bigger. And gibbous is this shape when there's more than half of the moon is lit up. And then we see a full moon where you can see the whole moon is full and bright and it looks like a bright round circle because we can see it entirely lit up. And then as the month goes on, we see the amount of light that we see is getting smaller. So when it's more than half as light, this phase is called waning gibbous. Waning, you can remember, means getting smaller. The amount of light we see is getting smaller. And then we have the last quarter, or third quarter. Now remember, it looks like half of the moon is lit up, but we call it a quarter moon because we're really only seeing a quarter of the whole sphere of the whole moon that's actually lit up. So we have waxing gibbous, then the third quarter moon, and then we see did I say waxing? I meant waning. Waning, see, it gets really confusing. Waning means the amount of light's getting smaller. So waning, last or third quarter, and then waning crescent. Because look, the last sliver of light is almost disappeared, and we see the new moon again. Now, the other teachers and I made this cool thing to show you. I wish we were in school that I could show you, to show another representation of understanding the moon phases. All right, so look at this. I'm going to start with it on this side. Okay, so look, this yellow ball represents the sun. Now you know that this is not to scale because the sun is actually huge, huge, huge compared to the earth. The sun is like 110 million times the size of the earth. So if the earth was this size, the sun would be like bigger than my whole room, okay? So the sun is huge compared to it, but for this model, we make it small. So look at all these moons. See how each of these represents where the moon is as it moves around the earth. And look at how half of it is lit up, half of it's dark. Half of it's lit up, half of it's dark. Half of it's lit up, half of it's dark. Well, that's because the sun is shining on the moon, and we know that light travels in a straight direction, so we can only see half of the moon lit up at a time. But the way that we see the light is what changes, why we have the different moon phases, because the amount of light that we see shining on the moon changes as the moon is moving around the earth. I represent the earth right here in the middle. All right, so I'm going to show you what it would look like if you actually put your head in here and look at the different moon phases where the moon is around. All right, watch. So this is what our first moon phase looks like. So right now, you're looking from the perspective of Earth. The sun is only shining on the side of the moon that we can't see. So here on Earth, we don't see the moon at all. This phase is called a new moon or no moon because we can't see the moon at all. Then, throughout the month, as the moon is moving around the Earth, oh, look, now we can see just a little sliver of light on the right. This is called waxing crescent. And as the moon is moving around the Earth, oh, look at this perspective now. We can see half of the moon lit up on the right. The amount of light on the right is getting bigger. So this is called the first quarter moon. This is the first quarter moon because we're only seeing this quarter. It looks like half, but it's a quarter of the moon that's lit up. But remember, just like we saw in the video, all of the moon have just half of it lit up at a time because they're all getting their light from the sun. So we had our new moon, our waxing crescent where we see a little bit. Then we have the first quarter where we see the half on the right lit up. So look, the amount of light that we see is getting bigger. And then, oh wow, so now we see almost the whole moon is lit up. It's almost all light. That's called waxing gibbous. And then, oh wow, from this perspective now, I can see the entire moon. That's a full moon. It's all light. Now the amount of light that we see is getting a little bit less. So this is called waning gibbous. Waning gibbous, because it's almost a full moon, but the amount of light that we see is getting smaller. After the waning gibbous, then we see the last or the third quarter. So see, we can see the light looks like it's halfway lit up on the left. That's the last quarter. Light on the left is the last quarter. Hear that? Light on the left is the last quarter or third quarter. Now we see the light is getting smaller, so it's waning. There's just a little bit of light that we see, so that's a waning crescent. And then we keep going back around and we're back to our new moon, where we can't see the moon at all because it's only lit up on the half that we cannot see. All right, so study your moon phases, fourth graders. My challenge to you is to look up in the sky tonight and see if you can identify which phase of the moon you can see right now.